it is an absolute beyond honor to be podcast interviewing Kristine Hodsdon. I've been a fan of yours for, I don't want to say 20 years because it might give away your age, but it's been a long time. Has it been 20 years?
Close to 30 now. Yeah.
You were a member. You were one of the original members on Dental Town. I mean, you were one of the first ones on there. I'm going to read your bio just in case there's one person living in a cave in Afghanistan that's never heard of you. Okay. Kristine Hodsdon, RDH, MSEC, aka the Dental Feminista. Did I pronounce that right? Feminista, or is it Feminista?
It can be any way you want. That's the beauty of it.
All right. Through coaching, training, and initiatives like the Athena Leadership Academy, Kristine developed in 2016. Her passion lies in forming supportive communities of women and guiding them to embrace their feminine strengths and leadership. I love this, how you say becoming financially fabulous and create the brightest future. Can I steal that? Financially fabulous?
Sure, go ahead.
I just love that word. Kristine is a founder of Dental Influencers, an international executive coaching and consulting company. Her specialty is consultant services, corporate spokesperson, speaker, and or leadership and sales coaching. She can help your organization business create shared value through investing in women. For 11 years, she held the position of editorial director of Penwell Publishing's RDH eVillage e-newsletter since its inception in 2004. And helped it to grow over to 60,000 subscribers. That is just huge. Before starting Dental Influencers, she was a director of dental services managing a $2 million operational budget with a team of 30 dental providers, and has been a sales consultant and educational manager for a global Fortune 500 company delivering presentations and trainings for international audiences. She is an award-winning international speaker and has authored over 200 articles, the book Demystifying Smiles, Strategies for the Dental Team, and a chapter in the textbook Mosby's Dental Hygiene, Concepts, Cases, and Competencies, 2nd edition. Kristine can be reached with requests regarding her consulting or speaking at KristineHodsdon.com. That's Kristine with a K, KristineAhodsdon.com. And by the way, we always transcribe these notes, so if you're driving in your car, like about 85% of our listeners are, if you go to any of the podcasts on Dental Town, the transcription, all the notes on there. But Kristine, I'm so excited to have you on today because I'm so sensitive to that male-female thing because I grew up with 5 sisters and I thought my mom, I love my mom to death, but I never understood why she dressed me in blue jeans and iron patches on the outside and I had no curfew. And we lived right by the Arkansas River and I could swim in it, but my 5 sisters couldn't get within 10 feet of the edge. And they were put in dresses, and if they soiled their dress, they'd get in trouble and get grounded. Right. And then I go into dentistry where, I grew up with 5 sisters, and probably 95% of the employees are women in dentistry. My president of my company for 20 years is a woman, and I want to ask you this: when I got out of dental school in 1987, was it kind of a male profession? Because now when I'm in dental schools, half the class is women.
Right, absolutely. So first of all, thank you, because I'm one of your biggest fans. I think you're a rock star since the first time I saw you in Connecticut speaking. So I've been in love ever since. And the fact that you're continuing this conversation about money and gender, it's just fantastic. Because when I look at it, it's not a male or female thing. And research is starting to support this. There's a masculine way of approaching things and a masculine model, and then there's a feminine model. And in the past, and it goes back to like the universal laws, right? So the law of reciprocity or the law of mentalism or the law of cause and effect, right? There's a law of general and there's a duality within all of us. And so, yes, to answer your question, the system of dentistry and its wonderful beginning was a more masculine linear model. I mean, let's think of it. We all have to step into our masculine to get your dental degree, right? To prep a tooth from beginning to end. So that's the good thing of it. So what had happened before is that we weren't allowed to really tap into the feminine side because the feminine side was more weak. And I'm a baby boomer. I'm on the cusp of baby boomer and Generation X. So when I went into all the corporations, I tried to act like a guy. And it didn't work. So we didn't have models then. So we went from the feminist, burning our bras type of thing, rah, 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 to then we went to another phase, which was the goddess, which was all Zen and yoga and all that type of stuff, which doesn't help. So now we're kind of going into more of a balance to recognizing that the feminine aspect is a system as well, that male and females can utilize for profitability. So tie this back to the audience. So what the research is saying is in business is that if you are too hyper masculine in your dental practices or in corporate, or too hyper feminine, it's going to affect your profitability. It's going to affect your connections. So profitability, accounts receivable, case acceptance, team turnover, maybe team dynamics. So we want to look at how we can have a balance of both. And I'm very excited. Yes.
So I want you to take, are us older male dentists responsible for this, or is it inside the head of the younger female dentist? I feel really sad when young girl dentists say, well, I am in a small town in, Parsons, Kansas, and I go to the study club, and I feel weird because I'm the only girl there.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to her. Is it the guy's not making her feel welcome, or is she just shy? Or is it a little of both?
It's a little of both, because as we're going through, even with the political climate right now, right? So there is an idea of being fear of change. So you cannot necessarily, it's not necessarily a person's fault that they haven't been exposed to what's inside of them. So again, from a guy's perspective, if you haven't had, like your mom, if you haven't had a lot of females in your upbringing, if you haven't been experiencing that, so you probably haven't really stepped into your more feminine, collaborative side, that type of aspect. So it's not your fault. And as well as the female doctor, ideally, she's gone through a masculine model in dental school, so she doesn't really know what model. So we, from a female perspective, we can go very aggressive and be known as, the B word when we get out, or we can go very much collaborative. I want all my team to participate. I want to be buddies with everyone, and either dichotomy isn't going to serve. So speaking to the female doctor, it's really identifying who you are, so identifying your brand, so to speak, and who you want to be, and then projecting that out so you're not coming out as being someone that you're not. And a lot of females haven't had the opportunity or understood that is a structure. That isn't just sit around and meditate, which I do, but you need to make sure you have a structure to get those success factors underneath your belt as well. Does that make sense?
Yes. I want you to answer a specific question that I get all the time at seminars, where a young 30-year-old woman dentist will come to me and she'll say that she's so stressed because she's working with her father, who's a dentist, and she loves her dad, but it's just suffocating because she's always going to be daddy's little girl, and it's going to be done daddy's way, and so she's torn. And I met two of them this month that finally just broke the string and set up on their own. Yeah. How would you coach a young female dentist trying to talk to her 50, 60-year-old male father dentist dad that, what advice could you give them on that?
Number one would be you really have to make sure that you know who you are. So I keep on going brand, what your brand is, who you are as a professional and as a woman. Because if you're not clear when you're getting into a conversation, you are going to go down a path or allow someone stronger than you to take you down that path. So and I'm not saying, you have to be bullish or aggressive, but just know who you are. If you haven't had the time to really figure out how you want to practice, right? What your vision for practicing is, what you want to align yourself is, what services that you want to bring, what hours of operation, right? Just those specific things, what days of the week even. So make really clear that you know exactly what your model of dentistry is and what that means to you before you enter into that conversation. And it's definitely, and I love it. I'm so glad you brought this up, because it's father and daughter, right? Because it's not going to be his dental practice anymore. It's like that old Oldsmobile commercial, right? It's not your father's Oldsmobile. It's not your father's or your uncle's or your brother's dental practice, but you have to find out what you want. And then on his side, because because he's your parent, he loves you. He believes that he knows what's best. So he has to have some willing to let go. And so, but that can happen with a senior doctor and their son. It can also don't even have to be generational. Related. It can be a lot of associateship now, because the senior doctors are holding on. They're staying a little bit longer, maybe because of the economy a few years back. So the new associates who are coming in, they're having that own clash because they haven't branded them who they are. So they don't know how to brand the practice or rebrand the practice so it speaks to the newer generation, because they haven't even found what that means yet. Because there's a whole thing with young guys coming in too, as far as doctors. I mean, and how they're playing it, whereas they can step off into graduating and they're young and they're ambitious and they're excited and they walk into a field of women. So their natural inclination could be a little bit more want to be their friends, maybe a little bit more flirtatious, maybe the leadership lines are blurred because they don't even know the leadership lines yet. And then 3 to 5 years down, when they got their props and they kind of know what they're doing, they're like, oh, wait a minute, I want to make some money here and this is a business. Then they try to step back into that leadership role, but they've already kind of planted the seed, so they have to go back in and renegotiate those contracts. So that's a fun dynamic too. So.
See, I gave her completely different advice. I told her just to hit her old man in the back of the head with a shovel and then use the shovel to bury him behind the dental office.
You could do that. You could do that. But again, that's a male thing. That's a male aggression. We want to collaborate. We want to talk. We want to problem solve.
It was a poor excuse of the joke. So what are gender stereotypes, and are they are they real? Are they in our imagination? What are gender stereotypes?
They're definitely.
Let me start with this question. Let me back up before that. Yeah. I didn't have the opportunity to raise a daughter. I always wanted to raise a daughter to see what the real difference biologically was. I had 4 sons. But do you think you and I are born differently at birth? Not neck down. I'm talking about our brain. Do you think men and women are hardwired different? And then apply that to what stereotypes are out there today and what are real and what are cultural.
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. I don't necessarily believe that our souls are born differently, but as soon as we enter this world, then we're influenced. And we're influenced as from, there's different planes and whether you believe in God or spirituality or the Buddha, but so how that influences you is how you're going to be, portrayed. So, for example, your sisters, they were definitely brought up more from an environment that was more feminine. This is what the feminine stereotype is supposed to be like. And you were brought up more like the male, the rough, you can do jeans, you can do all these type of stuff. So, but that is a little bit, even those stereotypes are changing because as women are breaking barriers into the man's world, just, athletics for number one, the women's soccer team for a great example, or men are actually breaking into what was more traditionally female, which would be like hygiene. So as those stereotypes are being broken by those pioneers, that's going to kind of change too. So the stereotypes of what you think a doctor looks like or what you think a hygienist looks like or what you think of an athlete looks like, that's changing, all the time.
I know now half of my dental assistants are guys and my office manager is a man, and that you just didn't see that in 1987.
Right. So how do you feel about that? Do you have a problem if someone mistakes them for the doctor?
I nipped that in the butt in 87 by putting everybody in uniforms. I think the consumer should see that this, I always made the analogy, if you were in the hospital and some guy came in with a tool belt and pliers and hammers and nails and started to come draw an IV on you, you'd freak out. You're like, aren't you an electrician? And so I thought that the dentist, the hygienist, the front desk, should all be in different uniforms.
Good.
With their name on it, just so you could look at a uniform and know,
and you would know.
It's a doctor.
Yeah.
Do you think going from dental schools that were 90% men in the 80s to half women, do you think that's usually a change in demographics will change an outcome? What do you think the going from almost no women to half women? How do you think that will change dentistry in the United States?
I think it's like a pendulum. So it's as with anything, when things start to change, you kind of go to the polarity of the immediate other side. So a lot of the female doctors, and this is generalized, not everyone, don't send me hate mail, but they were in the minority going through school, or you could insert dental school or any type of profession that was limited with women in the 50s and the 60s. So when women go into it, they actually kind of step into more of, the masculine side. And it's kind of like, my word, like a fraternity or sorority type of mentality. I went through it this way, so it's fine for me, so you can do it this way. But when there's an influx of, from the ground up, then those people are becoming into more leadership positions. And then now when they're in the leadership position or at the table, right, or making the decisions, or the faculty on the boards, they can sit back and say, well, yeah, that was a way, but perhaps there's another way that we can, be more inclusive and then move forward. So I think we're at a great point where, 10 more years down the road, it's going to be a little bit of a balance, and maybe this conversation, which maybe wouldn't even taking place, because a lot of the offices are going to understand that when you're dealing with money, or you're dealing with your systems, and you're dealing with accountability, I'm going to step into my masculine side and do my systems, my linear, but when my team dynamics, trying to connect with my patients, case acceptance, I need to learn some skills on the more feminine side and bring those things more in balance.
I want you to go back to stereotypes, and I'm just going to paint this picture for you, and then I want you to just rant on it. So I'm 53. I'm a Generation Xer. I'm a man. I keep a huge distance from my employees because I don't think I can be your best friend and buddy, because
Right.
I reserve the right to fire your ass tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So
Yeah.
you can't do that to your best friend.
Right.
And then I see all these young women, Dennis, complaining to me about the staff won't do what I say, but she's friends with them all on Facebook. She goes to happy hour with them after work. She's kind of their friend. And I don't know how you tell your drinking buddy that's hung over the next morning, yeah, don't worry about it. Hopefully they won't show up, or thank God we got to cancel it. So talk. So is that something that I'm Generation Xer and I don't get? I'm a baby boomer. I don't get Generation Xers or millennials. Or are millennials going to have a different leadership style than an old grandpa like me? Or are they going to be more friendly with their employees and like them on Facebook and all that stuff? So just talk about that. That was probably 48 questions in one paragraph.
No, and actually, there's just brilliant points. Yes, the millenniums and like my children's ages, so in their 20s and college. Based on the research, what they're showing is that they actually are having a balance of that type of, and wanting more collaboration, wanting more co-leadership, wanting more, brainstorming and multitasking than the linear type of from what we were used to, or the patriarchal, right? So having said that, yes, so the different generations are going to be moving to, again, the pendulum, it's kind of shifting that way. However, saying that, what still is not quite in place yet is a system or learning models that are frequent enough so females, women, know how to balance their feminine and their masculine. So exactly. So from the female doctor, she needs to stop that. But she doesn't have the structure or the background or the coaching or the consulting, and maybe that is a gap in the dental schools that they can start looking into. What does it mean to be a female doctor, a female lawyer, female leader within a practice? Because there are certain things that now she has to step back when she wants to become and realize this is going to be a challenge. And it usually doesn't take longer than a couple of years to realize that. She has to take a step back, again, find her own leadership voice. She's got to own her own power, then step back in and renegotiate the contracts that she's had with her team. That's on a professional level as well on a personal level. Because you're right. Females, we want to collaborate. We want to be in relationship. But if you haven't been taught that you have to have, like you said, you have to have a leader mentality, and you can't take that relationship need in the practice when you're trying to lead a team. That's a totally different.
I'm a big believer, especially raising 4 boys, that your mind's not going to listen until you're ready. To give someone a solution if their mind doesn't even see the problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So they're driving to work right now. Paint some specifics of where that line is between I'm your boss and I can fire you or not give you a raise or give you a raise, versus I want to collaborate with you and I like you and I'm spiritual and I want to be your buddy. Specifically, like Facebook, are you friends with Facebook? Do you go to happy hour with them? Can you just draw some more red lines in the sand of what separates I'm your buddy?
Right.
And,
right. So what would this mean for them?
Buddy versus boss. That'd be a great article. You should write that for Dental Town. You should write me an article.
All right,
on
wait a minute, hold on.
Called,
Let me write that down. Buddy versus boss.
Am I your buddy or your boss?
Yeah.
And what are those lines? Because they need exact, they're driving to work. What are exact lines that you can paint in their mind that they crossed?
Yeah.
And then it's going to be hard to tell them if you don't get here on time for the staff meeting every morning, I'm going to write you up.
Right. Well, number one, you hit social media. So social media in itself is just a cluster of what people put out there and what the expectations are. So from a doctor's perspective, male or female, they need to make sure that they know social media if they're going to be on it. And they almost have two different levels of Facebook, for example. So you have a level of professional Facebook that you allow your team to see, as well as anyone else who wants to connect with you. And then you have your other level, which is what your friends. And those are not going to cross. You just can't,
And your friend one should be should be a pseudonym. Should be Tooth Doctor Dust, not your name.
Well, again, your friend one is going to be pretty much maybe 12 people, people who you would be able to trust your life with, and then if you choose to put those things out there, which again, a lot what people put out there, I don't know why they put a lot of things out there. So, but that is different. So, and then you also have to have, your business. You have to have a Facebook page for your practice. And that's a reality nowadays because that's how people are connecting. And that, again, needs to be not necessarily managed only by the 19-year-old who works in your practice, because their lens of professionalism and leadership is going to be different than a doctor's lens of professionalism and leadership. So we hope that. So definitely draw the lines in social media. Number two is you need to make sure, my recommendation is that they make sure that they have the appropriate systems in place in their practice, that they have the job descriptions, that they have what their checks and balances is. So they have those protocols in place so that way they could lead and manage the team for those. Because that way, if they don't have, if it's just gray, oh yeah, I'm kind of a hygienist, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, or I'm kind of a front office person, I'm not really sure how many times I should answer the phone or how I should answer the phone. If those aren't sewn up, it's going to be hard to step into your leadership role. Because we need those from a female conversation to say, okay, these are the knowledge, skills, and ability that you need to have this role. This is the system that supports that. Let's have this conversation. And that keeps it clean, and it doesn't keep it as more of a girlfriend. Well, I'd really wish you could kind of get here at 8 o'clock and, that's not, you want to be able to have based on our vision and mission of the practice. This is what we do. This is what we do. This is what we do. And that's why I keep on going back to this is more the easy part. The first part is, who they are branding themselves. Do they even have a vision or a mission? And it could even be a practice within their practice if they're practicing with their dad. So, but a lot of times, because when you're in, this, when you go to a party or a reception or a convention, right, you walk into this room and you want people to like you. That is a human need. So when a doctor comes into a new practice, they want, because they're humans, right, they want the team to like them. And that is what happens when you kind of get that mirrored if they don't have, their lines already. Did I answer that?
You're the first person ever said that doctors are humans. Thank you for that. I've heard nerd, geek, nut job. I want to ask you a general political question. We hear a lot all over the news about pay inequality in America.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. It's,
what do you think the cause is?
Equal pay for equal jobs? If you have a job description and it's the exact same job description, it doesn't matter if you're, a male or female. Yeah, you should be compensated accordingly.
Yeah, but I just can't see in 2016 a table of people in HR saying, well, let's hire the woman over the man because we'll get her cheaper, or we'll offer the man, $80,000, the woman $70,000. I just don't see the logistics of how that would come into play.
It's probably not that overt.
But the statistics show it's huge.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably not that obvious. I don't think anyone really is going to, I can get into like the Carl Jung and one of my things is very, we're archetypal people, and archetype is just a character. So there's characters within our stories, and it's the stories that we tell ourselves. So if you want to say, the world sucks, excuse me. If you want to say the world is awful, then you're going to find things that support that. If you're going to find that the world is wonderful, you're going to find things that support that. So that's the story that we tell. So I don't think when people are sitting around, they're purposely doing that, but something is basically saying, well, I'm probably, let's not hire the woman, maybe because we can, or hire her because we can get her cheap, or let's not hire her because, she looks like she's around 27. She's probably just going to want to get married and have kids. And I had that going for me too earlier in my career. I had a mentor earlier in my sales career, and he would always tell me three things. Always accept a drink if a doctor offers you a drink, in the office, like water or Diet Coke when I was on a sales call. Don't wear a wedding ring. Don't wear any type of ring at all, because they're going to judge you, number one, if you are married or not, and or how size of your ring. So, which I always kind of thought that was interesting. And again, number three, yes, you want to kind of connect with the team, but not too much with the team, because really who's paying your bills is the doctor. So I'm like, that's interesting. And I didn't think then, but I'm like, did he actually ever tell a young guy not to wear a wedding ring? It's like, wow. So it's just weird. When those things kind of come in your mind, it's like weird advice. So I don't know if it's purposeful, or they may, like I said, people are human. So maybe they're really coming from a good place when they say things like that. So
it's funny. I was watching. My friend. I got my MBA to Arizona State University, so my PhD economics friends. I mean, they're just laughing. So the Middle East is having all these economic summits about how they want to get off oil. Most of these, in fact, like the entire Middle East has. If you back out oil, the entire Middle East has a smaller GDP than Spain.
Right.
And so they're trying to get off this. And while they're trying to get off, the first thing they're thinking is like diversifying in petrochemicals. And all the economists are looking at them saying, okay, your women don't work. So half your country doesn't work. Saudi Arabia, 28 million people. They have 3 million Indians from India there just to be taxi drivers because they won't let their women drive.
Right.
And it's like you look at these when I'm in Africa and Asia and all this, I'm just like, my God, one of the biggest problems of your economy is that half your talent is not even in the economy.
Right.
I mean, it just sounds crazy. Hey, I'm a huge fan of your website, KristineHodsdon.com. I want you to talk about some of your deals. You wrote a blog, Profitability Must Number One. No huddle equals less dental case conversations. How does a morning huddle equal dental case conversions? What were you saying there?
Yeah, so morning huddle, and everyone's definition of it is going to be different. So from a broad perspective, I don't think of a morning huddle as looking at the schedule and saying, all right, Mrs. Jones is coming in, I'm going to do a cleaning and x-rays. Sally's coming in, I'm going to do prep number 15. I mean, we should know that. We should know what we're doing, that those are the services we provide. The juice or the magic around the morning huddle is, let's take a look at this patient, and if they've said no in the past to treatment, right, which I know it's crazy, but some patients don't move forward with the things that we recommend, that let's find out what we have. So what do we know about it? What are their motivators? What are their concerns? What are their hot buttons, right? And I'm not going into, well, I brought this up the last time, so don't go there, right? Because that's just, you're closing down that type of conversation. As well as from a hygiene perspective, that let's orchestrate, I mean, when a doctor comes into the hygiene room, I mean, that should be an orchestra, that should be a play. I'm saying this, you're saying this, I'm saying this, you're saying this. It's not happenstance, this is structure, and it's not difficult structure, but it's basically around the patient and the concern for the patient. Because if we believe that what we're recommending is of value to them, then we should be doing everything that we can so they can say yes to the treatment that we know that they need. And what stops us a lot, as again, the whole human thing, is our own self-worth and our own self-confidence. So if we're not confident in who we are and the services we provide, that shows up. Because you just don't want to talk about it, or you're blaming the patient. Oh, well, he's never going to do it. Really? He's never going to do it? So how come when, one patient will see two different providers, even on a hygiene perspective, and one hygienist can move that patient through to scaling and root planing, and the other hygienist can't because it's always been like a pro-female. So who's the deliverer there? So you kind of have to look at not only the message, but who's delivering, and if you believe in it. So, and that's the self-worth.
You just mentioned scaling root planing, which is a can of worms for a lot of dentists. I'm in Phoenix. I don't know how it is in the entire United States, but and for my 29 years, we always ask a new patient, why did you leave your last dentist? And from 87 to 2016, the number one cause is, well, I went to this dentist and their hygienist, and they wanted to do these 4 quadrants root planing and curettage, and they're just trying to upsell me. They're just trying to make money. I just want to get my teeth clean. How do you what do you say to that at the morning huddle, or how do you address that? I mean, that is still real for me. That was real for me yesterday on a patient, and she drove all the way in. She drove an hour. She drove from the other side of Phoenix to come to me because her girlfriend told her to come to me because she thought her last dentist was ripping her off. Telling her and by the way, 99% of the time a patient says that, they need 4 quadrants. It's not like the dentist are. I don't see, the motive that they're trying to make money. I mean, I see it. They got gum disease. They got this lady had mobility on her canines. I mean, you know, but she thought the
So,
last guy was ripping her off.
well, and when someone says something like that, it really comes down to, for me, it comes down to a trust issue. So the other provider has not built up that trust. So he or she can trust the treatment that you're talking about. So it's really a matter of honesty and then connection with that patient. And she probably hasn't felt it, because if they're saying no, they might have a fear that what he's saying doesn't really work at all. Like, I have no idea what he's talking about. He just wants to scrape my gums, make money. Or they don't believe it's going to work for them because, I have an aunt and uncle, they all lost their teeth and they lost their teeth. So it's in the middle of, probably just it's more about them. So in that type of situation, it's probably best not to try to educate, to implore, because, just educating is not going to cause behavioral change. It's more stepping back into building more relationship with that patient and really finding and connecting. And like you would with a friend, out having a drink, so not necessarily that casual, because you still want to be the professional, but try to connect with them and say, really, I'm so curious, tell me more about that. We have a tendency to get into autopilot with our patients, and they say this, we're going to say this, we say this, they say that, they walk out the door. Oh, if they do schedule, great. If they don't, oh, well, it's not my fault. It's because of their insurance. Versus taking a step back and trying to use those relationship-based questions to really find out what is going to motivate them. And yeah, I agree. I've had patients who all they wanted to do was whiten their teeth, and you're right. And I had to hold a tooth down and scale it. And I'm like, really? All right, so let's not say no to that, because a lot of clinicians will be too hoity-toity and say, well, we can't do that. We have to take care of the gums. Well, we can whiten a little bit. Let's build up a rapport. Let's build up a relationship and kind of hold their hand and get them into the treatment, that type of thing.
The reason I like the whitening of teeth is I've always noticed part of the human condition is you either you've never gone bowling in the last 10 years, or you're all the way to the extreme and you own your own bowling ball. And right. I just saw with that whole tooth whitening deal that people that didn't brush, floss, take care of their teeth, they didn't like their teeth. And then you whiten them up and make them pretty, and they fall in love with their teeth. Then they're in there brushing and flossing and taking care of it. So I thought tooth whitening. And on that note, I have to say I'm very sad today. Bob Ibsen, the founder of Denmat, died yesterday, and he was the absolute father of cosmetic dentistry, because he wrote the first textbook when it was called adhesive dentistry, and he was out there in California, and he's out there in Hollywood and Santa Maria, and they all wanted white fillings, and they didn't have it, so he started his own company, dental materials, called it Denmat, and then he was the first one that came out with a high premium toothpaste, Rembrandt. All the other toothpaste were basically PPO, commodity, Crest, Colgate, all the same for the same price, and he came out and he said, I'm going to come out with a toothpaste twice as much, and it's going to whiten. And he was such an innovator and such a pioneer. Yeah. We miss you, Bob. Hey, so you wrote the one blog, Profitability Must Number One, No Huddle Equals Less Dental Case Conversation. Yep. And you wrote another one, Profitability Must Number Two, Claim What You Want from Dental Practice. What do you mean by that?
Give me another line, because I can't remember what I wrote about that.
I want to coach you to start your new year with goal setting so that you stay connected to what it is, what you want your dental practice. To get you started, follow these 3 steps. Vision. The beginning of the year is a time to schedule. You talk about vision, word of the year, money goal.
Yeah. So similar. It's basically if you don't know where you're going, any harbor will do, that type of thing. So when you want to make a look at I'm a purpose-driven person. I do things for a purpose. So so what I want to encourage my clients to look at is, what is your vision for your practice? What's your standard of care? Because for me, it's almost, I don't mean to sound creepy, but it's almost always the elephant in the room, or the third person in the room every time you have conversations with a patient and or with your team and or with yourself. So, you're talking about a patient, if an employee is not showing up on time, it has to do with the vision and what we're kind of striving for. Or if the patient's saying no to treatment, this is our vision that we believe in, Mrs. Jones, and da. So find out what your vision is. The word of the month is a book. The word of the year is basically from a book, and I can't remember, it's probably the word of the year. But basically it talks about, pick a word that can resonate with you, that you can step into, that you really going to go for. And you don't have to have a long, 5 or 8 paragraphs, or it's just one word that's going to get you up in the morning. To pin it on your computer or pin it in the back office. So that's going to keep you motivated, keep you focused. And then I have to tell you, I share, people need to deal with their money, right? So stop having an avoidance with money. Let's identify that money is a good thing. It's just an energy exchange. It's just a vibration. All the other things that you're putting on top is your narrative story that you're telling about your money. So, let's figure out what your goals are going to be financially for the practice, individually for providers, if it's hygiene or doctors, and let's work for it, together as a team. And it's okay to be profitable. And because most of the time as you know too, is that, when you are profitable and when and you have a purpose, you're going to be given back. So it's not like you're dialing for dollars. You're doing this out of a service, right? So it comes to service versus selling. And most of the more profitable and happy people really work more on the service versus trying to manipulate or take advantage of someone.
Well, let's back up. You and I got out of school in '87, and you got out of school in '88, which is bizarre since you're 15 years younger than me.
How's a prodigy child?
Let's talk real numbers. In 2005, according to PhD economic statistics, dentist income peaked at $219, and then for the following decade, it's been slowly going down $4,500 a year, and now at 2015, it's at $174. So dentists are making $45,000 a year less than a decade ago. We've been in this game almost 3 decades. Why do you think dental income peaked in 2005 at $219,000, and why do you think it's sliding $4,500 a year, and why do you think it's down to $174? Well, first of all, what do you think's causing that?
The slide. Well, obviously there's a competing values. So it's a lot of the thought process within the oral health industry is that dentistry is a commodity, and the verse is a value add or a service for your oral health. I think one of the reasons, if I could be honest, is that I think us within the profession got very lazy. We just assumed that people were going to come in to redo their smiles or invest the $20,000 or the $30,000. And there was that whole cosmetic shift as far as with that pendulum. It went way over, right? And a lot of doctors put their stake in the sand on that without their foundation. Forgetting about the regular, normal, everyday, bread and butter type of dentistry. So that type of elevation and then kind of back to the normal again, it's coming back to, they must not value it, or they don't know what they're talking about. Whereas we as clinicians really need to step into figuring out what motivates our patients, because we know they're spending money on phones, they're going on vacations. So how, shame on us for not stepping up our skills so we can communicate at a different level, so we can help the patient understand and value what we know that they need. So it's kind of a little interesting trend as far as blaming the patient versus blaming, not blaming us, but looking at our knowledge, skills, and abilities and the systems that support that. Because what has worked, where, just putting up a shingle back in the 50s and 60s doesn't work anymore. You have to have a business. You have to have a system. You have to deal with these things. A lot of people, as one of the signs of a leader is, making a quick decision, right? And how many times have you talked to a doctor who knows they need to let a team member go, but she's there 20 years later? It's like, what's that about, right? So those are the type of things that I think that we need to really realize our own self-confidence and self-worth. We do amazing things every day. We can really help people become healthy, and we need to step into that and honor that and show that with our patients. Because if we're not valuing ourselves, our net worth is not going to be there.
I find it, I think one of the factors that I see is when I got out in '87, only 5% of the dentists took no insurance, and the other 95% pretty much took Delta, Indemnity, whatever. And now that indemnity market, today, only 5% of U.S. dentists only take indemnity and do not take PPOs. 8% of U.S. dentists, 60% of Americans have dental insurance. 8% of dentists participate in HMO. 82% take PPOs. 6% are dental, or 5% are dental indemnity only, and 4% take a discount dental plan, like say, come on. So when the dental insurance has gone from all indemnity, where I just submit my fee and they just pay a percent of it, to now they give me the fee and those PPOs are going down. I mean, the price, they're not giving price increases. In fact, if anything, the new plans coming out are
Yeah, it's
lowering the
less.
prices. What do you say to what are your thoughts on PPO?
It's a
82% of your homies take them.
I know,
That's
I
4 out of
know.
5.
And they use it as an excuse as well. They use it as an excuse for not stepping up their skills as far as being able to, in general, not individual. That was kind of a harsh statement. But as far as really looking inside and stepping up their communication and getting their systems in place, because so many, and even just answering the phone. I mean, as soon as you hear, I have this insurance, the whole conversation and energy around who's ever answering the phone changes. And it's just a matter of really looking at the knowledge, skills, and ability of who you are, believing in what you provide, and then training up your team and working in that environment. I mean, when I was working in clinical practice, right in the last recession, as far as 2008, was it 2010? I mean, the practice that I worked in actually made a profit during the years of the recession. So, and why is that? Because it was a relationship based and the people valued it. So, I mean, we have 50% of the population doesn't even go to the dentist. I mean, there's plenty to go around. I think that we as an industry is better together and collaborating, and let's have, more conversations about how can we help each other out in a way versus saying, the guy on the, being in competition. Because I think Bob Proctor said that what amateurs compete and professionals collaborate. So those type of things are the seeds of, it's just not one answer. It's the whole thought, of where we're talking about.
So why do you think 82% of dental offices don't blink at signing up for a PPO, which on average is about a 40% reduction of your fee, but then they refuse to spend 5 to 7% of collections on advertising to go after the 40% of Americans that don't even have dental insurance? Well,
Yeah.
so why do you think, oh yeah, 40% discount? Sure. Hey, dude, why don't you spend 5% on advertising? I think that's an expense. That's a cost.
Yeah.
I'm saving
Yeah.
money.
It goes, I get it. It's the stories that you're telling yourself. I think it's a scarcity mentality, and it's doing what everyone else did. So they did this and everyone's doing this. So it's on autopilot, not necessarily the not really identifying who you want to be as a provider and then going after it. Right. And there's going to be plenty of teeth and smiles and people who are going to, be able to patron your door, and you're going to have a great income. But if you're just following suit with what they did and don't think for yourself, what is best for me? Okay. Or I'm in this situation. What plan and systems do I need to get out of it? Because you know what? This is not what I want to be. Let's just reshift and let's create some systems for that. So I think maybe if it's not too harsh, just the same old, not imagining it could be something different. Fear, scarcity. I mean, obviously graduating, you have a lot of loans, you have a lot of income, as well as I'm also going to think that, not paying attention to the numbers, not understanding what the numbers mean, and not letting the team understand what the numbers mean could be a big factor as well. So it's a lot of different things.
I want to ask you a big macroeconomic, because like I say, I got out of school in 87, you were 88. When we got out of school, Orthodontic Services of America was trading on the New York Stock Exchange, the only dental management services organization ever made it to New York Stock Exchange.
Right.
And all the orthodontists were going to work for Walgreens and all that stuff. And it just
Sears.
fabulously exploded. And there were a dozen on NASDAQ. Then they all went away.
Mm-hmm.
And then 10 years later, they're back. And now you have Heartland with 1,500 offices, Pacific Dental with 500 offices, Comfort Dental with 500 offices. What do you think corporate dentistry is this time? Is it here to stay? And then parlay onto that question, since you're a woman. Some people say it's because a change in demographics. They got a lot of women dental graduates who want to get married, have children, and they just want an 8 to 5 job. And when they get done at work, they need to go pick up their kids, and they want to do soccer mom. And so that's a lot of questions in one.
Yeah. No, actually, I do believe that it's here to stay, and I don't have a judgment. I don't think this is good or this is bad. It's just what it is. It's how our industry is changing, and there's different models for everyone, right? So you have to find out how you want to practice and what your brand of dentistry is. And I have heard those trends in female doctors, and Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's not a negative thing. We are always changing as an industry and as a culture. And now that we're having more females into the workplace, yes, that cottage industry, that white male hierarchical type of dental practice is probably not going to be there as much anymore. Again, it's not a negative thing. It's just kind of a shifting thing. So if a female doctor is choosing to go into more of a collaboration or corporate, so they can pick up their kids, they want to balance, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, but you also want to take a look at too, Howard, is, and specifically you brought up the millenniums, male or female, they have a different thought process what work is. They want a work-life balance. They don't necessarily want to work 70, 80, 90 hours, right? They want to be able to have, work, but then also play. I mean, look at that. I just was watching that new show on TV, or new to me, about the little houses, right? People are selling their houses and going to these little houses because they want to have more disposable incomes to do whatever they choose to do. So it's that type of thought process too. Things just change. It's not good or bad. If you're stepping into that environment and the quality's there, I don't know. It's just, it is different. It is a different type of thought process.
And then you have the other extreme where I get this a lot, and women dentists come to me and say, you talk about the difference in masculine, feminine roles, where the woman dentist will come to me and she says, one of my problems is my husband is now the soccer mom, and it really bothers him that I'm the breadwinner, and the reason I'm the working one is because I made twice as much money as he did, so he had to quit his job, and it really bothers him. And I always tell her, well, tell him not to think about that while he's vacuuming. What would you tell her? Would you tell her anything different?
Of course I would. I would say do that when you're scrubbing the toilets, because I hate doing that. Gosh. But honestly, and I hate to, but get some coaching, get some counseling, because it's in some unfinished. Again, depending on what generation that this person is, they were brought up with the story that males were supposed to be the breadwinners. Males were supposed to provide, right? Go out in the caveman days, right? This goes back to, long time. This is built in our psyche, that they were supposed to go out and kill and bring back, and we cook, right? So that's shifting. So not everyone is accepting or evolving at the same level. So, definitely I would say, hey, get some counseling, you two. I mean, she needs to rock and roll and own her own power, and don't allow the fact that he's feeling insecure or less than his self-worth to affect her. And that's one of the things that I've seen in my limited 20 years, but when it's funny, and I don't know if you've run into this, when I'm looking and working with a practice, why the male doctor, this is just general, the male doctor will put X amount, this is what I want to produce today, and the female doctor produces less, or says that she wants to produce less per day, same day. But one will say, I want to produce, 5,000, and the female doctor will say, no, I can probably do like 37. And I'm like, you're in the same practice, same team, same environment. Let's explore that a little bit. So I think that's kind of an interesting just a little side note that I've been kind of watching and working with some of my practices when there's a male-female team.
I think gender inequality is one of the saddest things in the world. I'm a big fan of that HBO series Vice, and they were doing a deal in Pakistan where these women, basically, they're not even allowed to leave their house, and they spend their entire lives inside the house. And then I come to America, and I have had women break down and bawl inside my house because, they set up an office in Phoenix. It was doing great. It's 10 years old, and her stupid husband's making $60,000 a year, but his Fortune 500 company transferred him from Phoenix to Seattle, and he's going. And he's going, and he doesn't realize she doesn't have a job. She owns a business, and she has Blue Sky, and she's got brand and this, and she has to decide, do I sell my practice and go up there, and I always say, draw the line in the sand, say, then go, and I'll be here, and they don't. They feel like they don't want to destroy the family. They got 2 kids. That's just so tough. Hey, you got a book on Amazon.
We like to step into being a martyr. We like to step into being a martyr a lot.
So what would you do? Specifically, what would you do? A woman has a practice. It's 10 years old. It's grossing $700,000. She's taking home $150,000. Her husband makes $60,000. I don't want to say any names because you'll figure out who this woman is, because she works for a publicly traded copper mine in Phoenix, Arizona. and her husband's transferred, and he's going to go from 50 to 60,000 and be in management, and it's going to be in another state. What would you tell that woman?
You know,
And they
again,
got two kids. That's the issue. If
see,
they
again,
didn't have
we
any
don't.
kids, there wouldn't be an issue. She'd tell them to go fly a kite, but you got two kids.
Okay, first of all, I'm a divorced mother. I chose to have the divorce. So using the children as an excuse, I don't buy it, right? Because as far as a female and as a role model, you need to make decisions because your children are watching, right? So I want my children to sit back and say, you know what, whatever the situation was, right? These are the steps that my mom did, and look, she's better for it. Versus this is what she didn't do, and now she's a martyr and collecting welfare. You know, that's not where the example I would want to have for my children. I don't know this relationship, specifics, but if this is going to help his self-worth, maybe it will actually enhance the marriage. And we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it is just going to be a 2-year thing, and they can figure it out. If it gets to be, they have to have some agreements and some conversations. If she loves what she's doing, if this is what her passion is, then she's got to stay and say, hey, this is mine, this is yours. Let's figure this long distance out. I mean, Bill and I were long distance relationship for 8 years, 1,000 miles away. We figured it out. So, with 5 kids between us. So now we're living together, but life is not just, 6 months time. It's a long process. And if it does work out in this case, what wonderful examples they both are teaching their children. You can have a family raising your children and, honoring who each other are. So I'm more gray than black and white as far as it has to be this way or the highway. I would keep my kids with me though if I were her, because obviously from a mother's perspective. But
see, I would only get remarried. I was married 20 years. I would only get remarried if it was a long distance relationship and she lived on Pluto and I stayed here on Earth. Hey, on Amazon you got a book, Demystifying Smiles: Strategies for the Dental Team. Talk about your book. And by the way, I wrote a book too. That's a hell of a project, to write a book. So from one book writer to another. That it's like having a kid, isn't it? It's like a 9-month having a baby thing.
It was, and actually that was I can't remember, probably 15. It was in the 80s or early 90s that I wrote the book, and that was right on when I was stepping into my corporate consulting about the aesthetics, and there wasn't a lot of aesthetic hygiene except for Lynn Miller, right? She was pretty much the only one talking about aesthetic hygiene back then. So, and I just thought she, and she was just amazing. So so I wrote a book, and again, but if you take a look at that book, it was before I even realized. It was a collaboration of my peers and colleagues. So even then, I was kind of stepping into the more feminine way of doing things, doing it all together versus just kind of writing it all solo. So it's just kind of interesting.
So what year did that book come out?
Honestly, I don't remember. I have.
Would it still be time relevant today?
Coffee. I think how many copies I sold.
Would that still be time? Would it be time sensitive information and be outdated, or would it still be relevant today?
It would still be relevant today.
Then you know what you need to do? You know what you need to do? These millennials, our parents always got mad at us because we wouldn't sit down and read a stupid black and white book. The millennials, they like audiobooks. Yeah. And Amazon now sells more audiobooks. In fact, so when I came out my book, I sat down and just logged on to Skype because it has a sound file. And I just read my book. It took me 5.5 hours to read it, and I put it on Amazon, and it actually sells more copies than the hard book. So if that's still time sensitive, in fact, if you read it,
it is actually.
If
maybe
you read
I should
it for
even
the
have
audiobook,
the contributors do their own, so we can have all different voices.
Yeah, and then when you read it, if there's anything that changed in the narrative while you're doing audio, you can talk about it. So what service do you provide for my homies? You're talking to. By the way, this show's gone viral. I mean, the numbers.
It's fantastic.
The numbers are crazy. We started uploading the video on Facebook. So instead of what we figured out with Facebook is if you post a link to leave your the Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg isn't going to push it out to my 180,000 Facebook fans. It'll go to like 4 people. But if I upload the video. He shoves it out. Last week, we had several of them that were viewed more than 33,000 times just on Facebook. Wow. And then so for my homies listening, what services do you provide? I mean, do you so if someone's listening to you, what can you do for them specifically if they want more of you?
Again, if it was from a corporate perspective, so from my corporate consulting, as far as you want to do, if interested in really identifying who you are as a leader, I can help with that. So from a female doctor, I'm working with a system that's called Athena Leadership Coaching, right? So it's success factors
Is that on the
that
same
are
website,
it
KristineHodsdon.com?
will be soon. I'm kind of rebranding a little bit, so it will be, yes. So by the time people listen to this, yes, that page will be up. So basically, it's there are again research based. I have a master's degree in executive coaching. I can say I'm the only person in dentistry that has a master's degree in coaching because I know the schools in North America. So I combined the art and science of coaching. So I'm making sure whatever I put out there has some type of evidence and has some research behind it. So these success factors that I want to walk a female through, whether you're a brand manager or you own your practice, they are success factors that research based that we need to own as far as women and women entrepreneurs or women leadership. So I can help you with that. And that breaks down to CE courses or being a spokesperson, an article for what is it, buddy or boss, and that type of thing. So there's a lot of different things that I can help either a corporation with, if you have a passionate initiative to move your women forward, and or practices, individual coaching or team coaching as well.
So I'm going to answer this. I only got you for 4 more minutes.
Okay.
The biggest problem I see with consultants and all that is that everybody, if you ask a consultant, like you ask any consultant out there, well, what is the average collections of the average client you deal with? They always say, I don't know, 1 to 2 million. It's like, dude, the average dental office only collects 765,000, and they take home 174. But point being that the really successful people always use consultants. And they're just using a consultant to just maybe get a little better and a little better and a little better, and they do it year after year after year. But all the people that just desperately need you, they won't spend the money. And then the mind's not ready to learn until it's ready to see the problem. These young dentists, they all think that they need to go to every occlusion and TMJ and sleep medicine course. And I say, well, what percent of your revenue is from TMJ? And it's like 0.5%, but they're going to go spend 6 weeks learning that. Well, what percent of your practice sleep medicine? 0. So they'll spend 6 weeks doing that. Then I'll say, your business is upside down. You have no leadership skills. Your staff's going crazy. You need a consultant. And they're like, no, I need to learn sleep medicine, TMJ. So how do you address my homies listening to you that are sitting there thinking, it's always that silver bullet. My practice will be $1 million practice if I just had TMJ and sleep medicine and, the whatever. How do you get them to sit there and say, you should first get your business poised for growth. You should first have a Rolex watch running machine that just beats on all cylinders, and then go play with that stuff. I mean, I've got every laser, I've got CAD cam. Same thing with CAD cam.
The technology, yes.
Get your office poised for growth, then go buy a CBCT and a CAD cam and go play. But those toys are not going to fix your business. You have to fix your business first, and that's going to be all the soft stuff, the leadership, the staff. So talk to my homies in their car driving to work saying, you're not going to solve this. You're not going to solve your problem with a silver bullet CAD cam machine. You're going to solve your problem by getting leadership skills, business skills. Get your house in order. Talk to that person.
Most of my clients are probably are from other consultants. So because they hire someone and they realize that they're, like you said, their mind's not ready to implement all these things. So it's basically, look in the mirror, because where we go, right? If you always find that you want to go to these clinical courses, you're hiding something. You're not willing to look at a blind spot that you have within you, and that's your other side. And actually, that's probably what you need the most. So, or more specifically, whatever drives you up the wall with your patients or with your team, those are signs for you that you probably need some leadership training. Because if your patients aren't paying, they're not accepting treatment, they're showing up late, that's a sign that your system isn't in place, and that's a sign of the knowledge, skills, and ability needs to be there. So it actually could be your team's knowledge, skills, and ability, and or your knowledge skills. So write down whatever ticks you off at night, keeps you up at night. Those are your signals saying, hey, I got to do something. They're your flags. I got to do something about it. Do something about it or ignore it. I mean, it's their life.
And it's the hardest thing. It's the best thing about life is the people, and the worst thing about life is the people. And what I think, exactly. What I encourage people to learn about leadership is, and you tell them, do you realize the same skills are going to apply to your marriage, your children, your family reunions, Thanksgiving dinner. What do you say when your batshit Uncle Eddie says something completely crazy? You know, I mean,
Yep.
it's all the soft stuff.
But your self-worth is connected to your net worth, right? So if you don't have a lot of self-worth and a lot of confidence, and that can show up. I mean, this is me, right? Not having a lot of back in my day, right? So not getting into my, connection and feelings. And if you have a hard time with that, that's going to cause that barrier, and it's going to show up in your systems and the numbers that you're tracking. So it's all interrelated.
And I owe all my self-worth to my mother. I mean, she told me since I was a little boy, she always would say, Howie, all the popes are Italian. You're going to be the first American pope. You're so smart, Howie.
Really?
You could be the first American pope. And she had me believing that I was smart enough to be the first American pope.
Were you an altar boy and everything like that?
Yeah, my two older sisters believed it, and they left high school and went straight to the nunnery. I mean, my sister's been a nun. I mean, they're older than me. I mean, I was going to be the first American pope until I met this blonde chick named Jane when I was 16, and then the pope dream just died. So how do my homies contact you if they got a question or because every time you lecture, you say, do you have any questions? No hands go up. And then you say, okay, take a 15-minute break, and they all run up to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do they contact you?
The easiest way is through, and you're gonna transcribe this. So it's my website, which is my name, which makes it beautiful. So it's Kristine with a K. Hodsdon, HODSDON.com. Send me an email. If you go on my site, my cell phone number is there, 603-765-6633. Send me a text. The biggest thing, if you're resonating with anything that we're talking about, let's set up an appointment, jump on the phone and chat to see if I can help you, right? If it's a fit to work together. I don't even know what you're looking for. So step one is just give me a call, send me an email. Let's jump on a phone call, 15 minutes, find out, and then we can make strategies.
And how much is that 15-minute phone call?
Nothing. That's relationship building. I mean, that's
Kristine A. Hodsdon. So A is your middle initial. I'm guessing Ann.
Yeah, it is Ann. Yes.
I guess you're right. That was a random guess. I was not looking up. So your email is Kristine A. Can I give that out? Kristine A. Hodsdon at gmail.com. Kristine, so you built that hygiene newsletter, 60,000. Do you still work for Penwell, or are you still involved? I don't.
No, I've decided to step back and kind of.
No, you should jump to Hygiene Town. You should do that on the side for me. We have the website Hygiene Town because there's 9 specialties.
Yeah.
And the oral surgeons, everybody just wanted Dental Town. The orthodontists wanted their own website. And you can only join that if you are an orthodontist. I can't even join it, and I'm the owner. And if you have an orthodontic company that only sells orthodontists, you can't join it. They only want orthodontists. And the hygienists wanted their own website, but they let dentists go on there. But it's called Hygiene Town, and it has about that many members. It has about 57,000. But if you ever want to consult with Hygiene Town,
I'm having five teenagers this summer. All our kids are coming for the summer, so I'm not sure what my social media is going to be looking like. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I love absolutely.
Well, if you ever want to work for Hygiene Town,
I want to like that article. Maybe a CE course on buddy versus boss.
Well,
I like that.
I got to tell you about a CE course. I got to tell you, this is crazy, and it's unbelievable. You know, when we were little, every course was you were lucky if it was in your town, and half of them you had to fly there. So on the Dental Town app, which gets over 1,000 new dentists per month and is north of 50,000 now, we put the online CE on the iPhone, the smartphone, the Samsung. It's already on the computer. But we put up 350 courses, and they just passed 600,000 views from here to Kathmandu to China to Tanzania. I was looking at it yesterday. I mean, it's so romantic to me when you see them watching these courses in Tanzania, Ghana, Ivory Coast. The other day, Ryan was showing me one, and we had to look on them. It was Swaziland. It was like,
I don't even know what that is.
And the reason we couldn't find it is because it's a country inside of South Africa.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little island. And it's like some damn.
And you started all this. You must be. I mean, this is just amazing. The reach that you have.
Al Gore started. It was the internet. Al Gore invented the internet, and I just rode the wave. And who would have guessed that Steve Jobs, rest in peace, would fit that internet into the phone? Because remember, when the cell phones got popular, it was Motorola and Nokia. And if you would have came up to me and said, someday some company that's not even in the phone business is going to crush Nokia and Motorola, I'd say, don't hold your breath on that one.
I know,
and
my
then
Motorola phone was like this big.
sticks the internet in that phone and comes out with the iPhone. And the iPhone has been one of the biggest game changers in sharing knowledge around the world.
It's
I mean,
huge.
when I was in lecturing in Africa, these guys were telling me that these kids who have been on, fifth generation on a farm are sitting there on their iPhone reading Wikipedia and have doubled their crop yields. So the formal education model of sitting in a brick building is yesterday. Now
And
they're
so
just sitting on an
exactly,
iPhone.
yeah. And same thing is consulting as well as coaching. And I consider myself more of a coach than a consultant because they're better minds than I have as far as getting those systems in place. But yeah, and that's why when you step into that, when you're looking at females, wrapping it back up a little bow, it's not necessarily the same old curriculum and how you're going to deliver that information. You got to be innovative because we're busy people. So yeah, so the internet and the phone and things like that are huge with that. So
I can say all my four boys that I used to pay 30,000 a year to send them to college, but after college, they spend more hours on YouTube watching documentaries and history. And I mean, I got one son that he should be given an honorary PhD in history because all he watches he just everything about history. And so the brick building is just it's just a high.
No, I would love to help. I would love to do a CE for you and your audience.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
Well,
yeah.
we'd love it too. We're out of time. Hey, Kristine, it was such an honor that you shared an hour of your life with me today. And have fun all summer. Those 5 kids, I'm already jealous. I only got 4. Have a great day.
Take care. Thank you.